I want to try to put a little bit more effort into the way that we're reading the gods.
Yeah, because like the goal of conquest is to subsume the order of the other.
Athena's like, but I can just break the rules a little. He's like, oh yeah, not you. You are perfect.
Keep going, I got a good thought. Hello, and welcome to WINNOW, a couple's close reading of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm Owen Gemmer.
I'm Isabella Gemmer. We are married and we love to talk about books together.
In this podcast, we are going through the entirety of Homer's two epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, book by book. This episode is about Book 8 of the Iliad.
Another book that, upon first read, you think, maybe it's a little boring.
Kind of a transition book.
But I think the more we've thought about it, the more we're like, I think there's actually a good amount of interesting stuff to talk about.
We were both kind of on second readings, like, okay, yeah, like I've got some things I want to say.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive right in. We will do our summaries. I think we both enjoyed our new method from last week, where Bella writes a summary with some sort of like writing constraint, and I write a short poem. So I think Bella started last time, so I'll start this time. I've gone with a limerick again. I don't know if I'm going to do exclusively limericks, but right now I just really like limericks. They're just fun. So here's my limerick summarizing Book 8. Big strong Zeus in his meddling way commands all other gods to stay. The mortals give lots of speeches and fight on the beaches. The Trojans hope they will win the next day.
My critique on your poem is probably not very interesting to the audience.
I want to hear it.
I wonder, the last line doesn't hit as hard as most limericks.
Yeah. I think part of that is because I went a lazy route and my rhyming, like the 1, 2, and 5 rhyme is an easy one. It's like way, stay, day. And so it doesn't like have the same punch because it's a kind of simpler rhyme.
Yeah, and each of those words is only one syllable. Is that maybe part of it?
Yeah, I just think it's, like day is like a weak word to end a poem on. Like anything that rhymes with that, it's kind of, it's too common of a sound that it doesn't feel conclusive.
Yeah. But I like the beaches. That's cute. I like that.
The mortals gave lots of speeches and fight on the beaches.
Yeah, that's good. Because it reminds me of Sneeches.
Yes.
Yeah, so I love that. Okay. For your informative summary, I have chosen to not use the letter M. Zeus gives a speech about how no one should defy his orders. They are not allowed to interfere with his plan. He goes to sit overlooking the battlefield and takes out his golden scales. He weighs the destinies of the Trojans and Greeks. The Trojans rise up and the Greeks sink. Today the Greeks are going to get beat up by the Trojans. Zeus starts throwing lightning bolts at the Greeks, so they retreat. Nestor gets stuck on the battlefield alone because his horse has been shot in the head with an arrow. The Greek warrior of the war cry goes to his aid. They together ride a chariot and attack Hector. Their chariot gets struck with lightning by Zeus. Hector and the Trojans advance. The Greeks are pushed back to their ships. The Greek leader, who we all know who I'm talking about, gives a pep talk. He calls out to Zeus and talks about all the sacrifices he's offered up. Zeus is swayed by this and decides to show pity on the Greeks. They are reinvigorated. Teucer, one of the Greeks, a sharpshooter, shoots down a lot of... No, can't say that! He shoots a lot of Trojans. He tries to hit Hector, but Hector rides up and hits Teucer with a boulder. Hera and Athena attempt to aid the Greeks, but Zeus sends a warning.
Try.
Hera and Athena try to aid the Greeks, but Zeus sends a warning to stop. They turn back. The fighting pauses for the night, and Hector gives a speech to the Trojans. He expects to be victorious soon. There's a couple mistakes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, the names were the more challenging part with Diomedes and Agamemnon.
Yeah. I'm actually finding it hardest when you have to be specific about what person is doing something, and you're like, oh, I can't say their name.
Yeah.
But yeah, Diomedes is master of the war cry. I couldn't even say master though, so I just say the guy with the war cry.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think like Homer makes that easier than if you were doing this for any other book, because there are so many kind of epithets and nicknames that you can go by.
Yeah.
I really like Chapman is really keen to use the patronymics, which in Greek the IDES ending is like son of this. So Diomedes is the son of Tydeus, and so he's often referred to as Tydides, Tydides. And then like Agamemnon is Atreides because he's the son of Atreus.
Yeah.
So yeah. But Tydides, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's how I say it in my head, and it's very fun.
Yeah, it's a fun word.
So, to sort of frame our sort of broader analysis of this book, as we were kind of sitting here discussing what we wanted to talk about, we realized that Bella and I had very different interests in this book. And so we're going to kind of split this into two parts. Bella was much more interested in what's happening between the gods, and I was much more interested in what's happening between the mortals. So she's going to kind of take the lead on this first part and talk about kind of all the god stuff, and then I'll talk about what I found interesting about what the mortals were doing.
Yeah, well, this book as a whole really shifts perspectives a lot.
Yeah, back and forth.
It starts with the gods, it goes down, and we see things from the Greeks' perspective. We kind of see a little bit from the Trojan perspective. Goes back to the gods, goes back to the Trojans. Yeah. And then at the end, this book ends really with a nice visual. It really zooms out and describes the way that like all the campfires at night that have been lit, how they shine like stars shine in the night sky, which is quite nice. Just it zooms out to give you that sense of scale and how big these armies are, and just trying to reiterate that, which is really cool. But yes, I wanted to talk about the gods this time because I want to try to put a little bit more effort into the way that we're reading the gods. I think we need to put a little bit more effort into being like, instead of just saying, oh, they're fickle and their opinions seem to change all the time.
Which is my habit. I know that's a problem. It's lazy. But
Yes.
It's just,
I think I want to put a little bit more effort into thinking about why they're doing the things that they're doing, because these are great books, these are classic books, and things aren't just in here to take up space. So
Yes.
But yeah, so this is the first book where Zeus kind of actually does something, which is really cool. He tells everybody, like, you guys need to not interfere. I'm gonna go enact my plan now, and you guys cannot interfere. And he like threatens them. He's like, if you guys try, like, he's like, I'm gonna throw you off the mountain, like off Mount Olympus.
Yeah, and he's like, I am the strongest of all of you. Like, don't you dare challenge my strength. Like, kind of implying, like, I've been holding back, but, like, I could take any of you in a fight.
Yeah, he calls himself the great mastermind, the highest god, which is, it's pretty funny, I think. And then it's so interesting, though. So he calls himself, he's like, I'm really great. I have the strength to pull all of you and scoop the earth and sea up with you also, and to tie a chain around the pinnacle of Mount Olympus and suspend it all, so earth and sea would dangle in midair. I am so much the greatest of you all, stronger than any other god or human. And then Athena, she's like, can I just go give the Greeks some good advice?
Yeah, I won't help them. I'll stop fighting. Like, I know I've been, like, fighting with them the whole time, but now I'll just give them advice so they don't die.
Yeah, she's like, can I just, I'll just go, like, give them some advice. It's not really breaking the rules. And Zeus is like, he's like, I was not being serious. I love you. I want to treat you kindly. So he like immediately, like continuing the theme of like Athena being the favorite. He's like immediately, Athena's like, but I can just break the rules a little. He's like, oh yeah, not you. You are perfect. And I will not hurt you. Well, maybe we'll come back to that in a second. Just hold on to that thought. But let's first talk about how Zeus goes down. He takes out his golden scales. And he, on the one side, he puts the Trojans' fate. On the other side, he puts the Greeks' fate. And then it apparently tips like literally in this book, the scales tip in the Trojans' favor. The Trojans rise, the Greeks fall. And I'm wondering why this is Zeus's plan all along.
Right.
He's this is him being good to his word to Thetis.
Right. He, like, back in book 1 agreed, like, yeah, I'll tip the scales in favor of the Trojans so that Achilles is justified and a bunch of his comrades die, and they come back begging him and saying, oh, you were right and I was wrong.
Yeah. And so this is him, coming true on his word. So why does he need scales to make this? He's already made the decision. And so I'm wondering, like, does he need the scales to represent the bigger concept of fate? Or is he literally the one tipping the scales? Like,
is this another conspiracy theory you have?
Well, I just wonder, I'm interested in the difference between the power that Zeus has versus the overarching power of fate.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if in this scene, it's not that Zeus is holding up the scale and waiting to see which one will rise and fall, in terms of like waiting to see what the big picture fate has in store, but I'm wondering if it's symbolic of him being like, this is what I've decided.
Right. Because, yeah, like, the actual physical mechanism of these scales is not actually described. It just says, like, he put in the fates on the scale. Like, what are that physically? Because it's implied they have weight, right? Like, one is lighter, one is heavier. But, like, it feels, again, fairly arbitrary and easy. Maybe I'm the one with the conspiracy theory that he just, like, picked up a heavier rock and said, oh yeah, this heavy rock is the Greeks' fate and this really light rock is the Trojans' fate. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Like the idea of he's weighing two destinies against each other. Like, what does that even mean? Like, I have a hard time conceptualizing what that means.
Yeah. Because again, like, it's either a simply symbolic representation of what he has already decided.
Yes.
In that case, it doesn't actually have that much meaning. It's just, again, a symbol. Or it actually is up to the fates, and then it's Zeus kind of admitting, hey, I just said I have all this power, but I actually don't have power. Fate has more power over me. And so, like, in either scenario, it's kind of, from Zeus's perspective, meaningless. It's either already been decided by Zeus, or it can't be decided by Zeus, and thus has to be decided by this external power of fate.
Or kind of this idea that, like, there is fate and the Trojans have a destiny, the Greeks have a destiny, and he, being the greatest of the gods, is able to see both destinies and pick and choose how fate will unfold, right? Like, that's kind of, I think, what I'm getting at with the way in which he interacts with these bigger,
or the time.
fates.
Maybe it's a timing thing as well. That, like, yes, it is fated for this to happen, but, like, now it's happening now, and so now we're gonna make the Trojans do better. Because again, this is speaking from our, like, culture's hindsight of knowing how this ends. Like, it actually isn't fated to help the Trojans, and so that's another interesting thing. With this scale, if it is true that it is weighted for the Trojans' rise and the Greeks' fall, it is only a temporary sign of
today.
This day or something like that. Because, yeah, we know Troy is going to get sacked, and basically all of them are going to die.
Yeah, which when we talk about things from the human's perspective, you can talk about Hector's speech at the end. But Hector, at the end of this book, he's really feeling the fact that, like, Zeus is on their side, and he's really sure that, like, they're gonna pull off a victory soon.
Yeah.
You know, but it's only temporary.
Right.
You know, and maybe the scales are kind of meant to symbolize something about the temporary nature of things here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because do you want to then also talk about the moment we both found really interesting towards the end of the book, where Zeus has, like, pretty explicit foreknowledge of what's going to happen, like in book 22, 23.
Yes. I'll just read. It's around line 470 in the Greek. Zeus is talking to Hera. Hera, my ox-eyed goddess queen, you shall witness at dawn tomorrow, if you wish, almighty Zeus, the son of Kronos, kill yet more Greek warriors, mass casualties. Powerful Hector will not leave the fighting until Achilles, son of Peleus, rises on swift feet from beside his ships, the day the Greeks are trapped beside their fleet, desperately fighting for the dead Patroclus. Such is divine decree. So I was really interested in, again, the idea of divine decree versus fate.
Yes. So we looked it up.
Yes.
And there's something interesting.
In the Greek. Greek time!
So, we have earlier talked about the word sort of like morismos or moros. That's kind of the general word for fate that gets, again, whether it's an adjective or a noun, changes around or things like this. And I just kind of assumed it would be that same word. And I was like, there's probably not going to be that much interesting to talk about here. But it's actually a different word. So the word that is used here is thespatos, which is a compound word from the word theos, meaning God, and then the verb themi, which means to speak. So it literally is like spoken by God, which then comes to mean sort of like decreed or like ordained or something like that. And so this idea of this is, divine decree that Emily Wilson does is, I think, a very good translation. Like, it is spoken by God.
Yeah, which then I think it just reinforces this point I'm trying to make, that divine decree is, it's spoken by Zeus. He's like, this is how it's going to go down, and I'm going to make sure it goes down this way.
Yeah.
Which is separate from fate.
Yeah, and I think it's the other thing that stood out to me about this particular one of the decrees or one of the conversations about fate is how specific it is, right? Like, most of the time it's been this kind of broad, like, right, like, one will rise, one will fall, like the whole sort of tone of the war will shift.
Yeah.
But this is really, really specific, that like Hector will not leave the battlefield until Achilles comes up when everybody is fighting over the body of Patroclus. So he already knows Patroclus is going to die, and that is going to be the thing that gets Achilles to leave his ships. And like, that is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And so, this is, I think, the most specific of the prophecies so far.
Yeah. And I had also forgotten about, like, this is this moment of not foreshadowing, but like
foreknowledge.
Yeah, foreknowledge. I wonder, do you think that this increases the dramatic tension or decreases it? Because we already know, we're pretty sure that, right, we're waiting for Achilles to come back. I think that knowing Achilles is coming eventually is really good, tension and excitement for the audience. But does now knowing that Patroclus is going to die, I wonder what that does. Does that increase the audience's excitement because they know, when Patroclus dies, that means that's the cue for things to go crazy? Or does it lower the tension because when Patroclus has his moment out on the battlefield, we kind of know how it's going to end?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think, from my perspective, I think the first time I ever read the Iliad, if I had paid better attention and noticed these lines, I would have been really kind of disappointed as like a spoiler, like, man, you just ruined it for me. But I think it super depends on how much the audience already, like the original audience, would have already known about this, how much this myth was sort of already extant in the people's minds, and he was, again, just kind of telling it in a new way, or if it was new to them. I think, again, like, if everybody kind of already knew how the events of this played out, then it's fine, because they all know it's coming anyway, and it maybe does increase the excitement of like, like, this is going to happen, and right, that's going to be the sign that everything's going to go crazy. But if this is a sort of a different version than the story that the culture broadly would have told, or again, the audience was just ignorant, like many modern readers are for the first time, of the particular details, then I think, it would be a bummer. And I'm kind of glad the first time I read it, I didn't pay close enough attention to notice like these 4 lines, because spoilers.
Yeah, I don't remember like that specific. It's a very specific spoiler. It's not just a general spoiler.
Right.
It's
because
specific.
like basically everybody, even in the modern day, who goes into this knows it's going to go bad for the Trojans. We all know the Trojan horse kind of thing. We all know that much.
Yeah.
But the particular, and right, you've noticed they've many times hinted that Achilles is going to come back, but this is even a level further than that.
Yeah. So I also want to bring our attention back to what I started talking about earlier, which was the the funny dynamic between Zeus and Athena. Zeus lays down the law. Athena says, "Are you sure I have to follow the rules?" And he says, "Not you, my favorite child." So as Zeus, he's literally throwing like thunder or he's throwing lightning bolts at the Greeks. He's like literally like, it's actually pretty cool. Like he's just like, his aim is so good. He's like, he'll just like hit like the chariot that Diomedes is riding. Diomedes is like, okay, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should go back. But that's just cool. Like the lightning is cool. But yeah, the Greeks are getting hammered, and Athena talks to Hera. And so this is a really close parallel to what happens in book 5.
Oh, I hadn't.
Yeah, it's like,
tell me more.
It's almost the same. So it's when in book 5, Athena and Hera are like looking at the Greeks. They're like, we should probably go down there and do something. And then Athena does the thing where she like, it's like almost the same exact wording. And these are really, I think it's really important to pay attention in the Iliad and the Odyssey when you have a description that you've already seen before. Mm-hmm. And so it's meant to be a moment where you're supposed to see the similarities and differences mm-hmm. and compare moments. So these are just things to keep in mind. But it's the same image of Athena, child of Zeus who bears the Aegis, shook off the flowy, soft embroidered dress that her own hands had woven and created, and left it in her father's entryway. Then she put on a tunic that belonged to Zeus who marshals clouds, and armed herself for war, the source of tears. So it's the same image of, in book 5, she takes off her dress.
Yeah.
She's naked in the living room.
I do remember.
And then
about that, yeah.
But she puts on Zeus's garment, and she goes out with Hera. They get this brilliant chariot, and they go out. But that's when Zeus isn't doing anything. So Zeus is out there doing stuff, and she and Athena get in the chariot, and they ride down. But Zeus sees them coming. He tells Iris to send them a message, like, I told you guys not to do this. They seem to actually listen to the message from Zeus. They turn around and go back home. Mm-hmm. But so this is like a parallel moment. It's like almost the same, where they prepare and they are going to ride down together, but instead of actually participating in the war, they're actually swayed by Zeus to not interfere. Again, I'm interested in like, Zeus seems to actually have some sort of power over the other gods, even though sometimes they don't do what he says and it's cute, and sometimes they don't do what he says and they get in big trouble, and sometimes they actually listen to him.
Right.
I've been trying to think about things from like a little bit of like a Jonathan Pageau type mindset or lens when thinking about the gods, because and by Jonathan Pageau lens, I'm talking about like viewing things in terms of having an order to them. Whenever you have a pantheon of gods and goddesses or like forces, when things are in perfect order between all these forces, that means things are going good, and there is a proper order in which things do run smoothly. Mm-hmm. But this is a book about war, so what that means is that all those forces are disordered. Mm-hmm. And here we get a moment where Zeus he seems to be the ordering factor, and he brings things into a type of order,
right,
with him at the top and everyone else obeying him.
Yeah.
And I've been sorting through this idea in my mind and trying to figure out, like, is this a good order? And as the book continues, I want to try to think about this again and again, and think about what is the proper ordering of the gods, and thinking of them as almost like in how Inside Out does emotions. Mm-hmm. So when we think about the gods, I think we should think of them as the emotions inside, the girl's head in Inside Out. Because in Inside Out, there is a proper ordering to emotions. And then the conflict comes because there's a change that happens. Mm-hmm. The emotions are no longer properly ordered, so then they have to re-find an order that then supports the whole, which is the person that they are inside of. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to sort through that idea, and I'm wondering if you maybe have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's a compelling question to keep in mind. And I think my sort of historic negativity towards the gods will sort of come through in my initial reaction that I want to change, because like I can't help think about how petty Zeus seems all the time. And like if the person setting the order and the arrangement for everything is so fickle, like how can it ever be a proper order? But again, maybe that's my being too critical.
Yeah, but also, yeah, I don't mean to say that like whoever is in charge in these scenarios, they don't need to be the most righteous person.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think because the Iliad is about war, I think war being chaos, right? It automatically means that there is dissension among the gods.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think, well, in some ways this transitions pretty well to some of the thoughts I have about the mortals, because we also see this contrast in the sort of ordering between the Trojans and the Greeks, right? Like book one starts with tension among the Greeks as to the proper ordering of things, because Agamemnon has the political power, and as we talked about, Achilles has the sort of martial power, and like there's this real conflict with like Achilles gone, who's the best warrior, Agamemnon's here giving speeches, and I think actually doing a decent job in this book. Whereas on the Trojan side, it's super clear Hector is the guy. Everybody looks to Hector both as the greatest warrior and as the orator and as the leader. And so on the Trojan side, that order is very sort of clear. You disagree.
Just an interjection. You can go back to it in a second, but I do think it's interesting on the Trojan side, Hector is not the king.
Right.
So you do have an interesting thing where Priam is technically the king of the Trojans.
Yes.
He is not involved in any of this.
Right.
So I do wonder, so maybe there is something there that's a little bit amiss, where Hector is on the battlefield, he's in charge, but overall he isn't really.
But I think it's pretty clear he's like the successor to Priam.
Well, go back to what you were saying.
Yeah, so I think the fact that there is such a clear hierarchy with Hector at the top of the Trojans, both again in terms of military power and leadership, helps understand why we've also gotten, I think, more kind of humanizing moments from Hector, like in book 6, his conversation with his wife and all of those moments, because I do think we are intended to be sympathetic to the Trojans through Hector, to see like he is very clearly respected, and I think for good reason. Like he is a good warrior, he is a good leader in terms of encouragement of his army and things like that. Whereas on the Greek side, we've seen Agamemnon sort of vacillate between being like really petty and maybe cruel, versus I do think in this chapter he's a better leader, and there are other moments. And so I think, yeah, my kind of general framework and excitement for this was there are a lot of good speeches that the different mortals give to one another in battle, either encouraging or reprimanding their comrades or things like that. And I just want to go through some of them, because I think the way that they all treat one another changes throughout the book. And also I think just like it's interesting to think about kind of motivation and positive versus negative reinforcement and all of this. So the first, well, obviously Zeus has some good speeches as well, but the first big speech, Hector gives one to like the whole Trojan army sort of towards the beginning of the book. And I want to just read some from the Chapman, because the Chapman can sometimes, with his sort of like rhyming and the rhythm, can be really distracting when it's just kind of plot and action happening. But when it's like speeches, I think that's where Chapman's style really sings. Then Hector comforted his men. All my adventurous friends, be men, and of your famous strength think of the honored ends. I know benevolent Jupiter did by his beck profess conquest and high renown to me and to the Greeks' distress. O fools, to raise such silly forts, not worth the least account, nor able to resist our force. With ease our horse may mount quite over their hollow dike, but when their fleet I reach, let memory to all the world a famous bonfire teach. For I will all their ships inflame, with whose infestive smoke, fear shrunk and hidden near their keels, the conquered Greeks shall choke. I know I haven't actually looked at this in other kind of more literal translations, so I don't know how embellished it is, but even if it is, like, the embellishments are great. Like the phrase, whose infestive smoke the conquered Greeks shall choke. I just think that's a great pair of things. And the image as well of, like, right, the Greeks built this wall, right? Troy has this great wall, and then the Greeks build their own little wall to protect their ships. And he's like, such silly forts, not worth the least account to resist our force. Like, my horse can just jump over their wall, and then I'll light their ships aflame. Yeah. Like, it's this awesome, like, don't be afraid of them because they have built this silly little wall. We can still conquer them. Like, it's this, I think, really good kind of encouragement to his army that, like, we can take them. Like, look how pathetic they are. They're just, like, hiding behind their little wall of sticks that they built. Yeah, I just think it's a really good speech. But on the other hand, on the Greek side, we have other speeches that are less positive reinforcement and more negative reinforcement. So before this, when Nestor was sort of under assault from Hector, Diomedes was, like, going to defend him, and he calls out, he sees Odysseus kind of retreating, and he calls out to Odysseus. And thou that in counsels dost abound, O Laertides, why fliest thou? Why thus coward-like shunnest thou the honoured press? Take heed thy back, take not a dart. Stay, let us both intend to drive this cruel enemy from our dear aged friend. And so this, like, Diomedes there is appealing to Odysseus's, like, sense of honor by calling him a coward and saying, like, don't run away, we have to defend Nestor. And then later, after Hector gives the speech that I just read, when all the Greeks are kind of back behind the wall, Agamemnon is, like, running about trying to sort of, like, encourage everybody, and he, like, picks a spot kind of, like, right in the middle of their camp and gives this big speech to all of the Greeks, where he is very encouraging of them, but in a kind of negative way, right? Like, oh, what shame, ye empty-hearted lords, is this to your admired forms? Where are your glorious words in Lemnos vaunting to the best of all the Grecian host? We are the strongest men, ye said, we will command the most, eating most flesh of high-horned beeves and drinking cups full crowned, and every man 100 foes, 200 will confound. And so he's basically reminding the Greeks, like, when we set off for this war, you were all like, I can take 200 men at the same time. Where's that courage now? And so in the same way that Diomedes sort of calls Odysseus to account for his sort of cowardice, Agamemnon's doing a similar thing of trying to, like, say, like, remember how brave you were when we set out on this conquest? Like, let's get back to that. When there was a retreat back in Book 2, right, when the Greeks were, well, when Agamemnon was like, oh, I'm going to test my army and see if they're courageous and say we're going home, and then everybody's like, all right, yeah, let's go home. Agamemnon failed to sort of rally his troops, and it had to be Odysseus who, like, got everybody back going with Athena's help. But now we see Agamemnon actually able to do it on his own. Like, Agamemnon doesn't need Odysseus's help in this moment. He is able to kind of, like, get his troops to stand firm a little bit.
I would like to point out, though, that, so, in Agamemnon's speech, at first he tells the Greeks, you are only good at looking pretty. But then he calls out to Zeus, and he tries to remind Zeus of all of the sacrifices he's given him. And so he asks Zeus to kind of show pity. Yeah. Because he's so, like, pious. Yeah. Essentially.
So do you read that as, like, desperation?
Yeah, I think so. But then it does work. Yeah, Zeus grants that the army would be safe, not massacred. So not he's like, okay, not every Greek is gonna die today. Do you have the, like, maybe it's not very clear in your translation, but Zeus sends an eagle. Yes. Yeah, okay, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I wonder if sometimes in your translation those things can feel metaphorical when, like, it's supposed to be literal. Yeah. But, so Zeus sends an eagle, the most meaningful of birds, whose talons held a fawn, a swift deer's child. The eagle dropped the fawn beside the altar on which the Greeks made sacrifice to Zeus. Mm-hmm. And then this is the thing that rouses the Greeks to go back into battle, I think. Yeah. But
it's still Agamemnon's prompting. Yes. Yeah.
Agamemnon will call on any possible strategy to rouse his people, whereas Hector just is always a straight shooter, kind of.
Okay, that's a good distinction.
Yeah, like Agamemnon will use anything at his disposal to get the guys to listen to him.
Yeah.
But yes, Hector is you could say he is a better leader in that he's
able to do it on his own without appeals to other places or people.
Yeah, he's able to just do it, sort of.
Yeah, that's fair.
And he also leads by example, which helps.
Yes. Yeah. But I do think that following then that, when the Greeks do sort of get roused, right, then we have Teucer, or Teucer, I don't know how it's
I've been saying
pronounced.
Teucer.
Teucer, oh.
I like Teucer. That's funny.
It's Teucer.
Yeah.
But C's not a letter in Greek. It's probably a kappa.
You're right.
Anyway, but he's Ajax's brother, who's a good archer, and he's just out there just like going Legolas and just like left and right, shooting people. And Agamemnon like has this speech like, "You're the best archer there ever was," and then Teucer has this response like, "Yeah, I am the best archer. Like, let's go." They have this like kind of funny.
Well, I actually wanted to mention that. I think it's so funny because Agamemnon tells him, "Wow, you are like so good at this."
Yeah.
And I say this to you, so it will be. If Zeus, who bears the aegis, and Athena grant that I sack the well-built town of Troy, I will set in your hands a fine reward as soon as I myself have got my spoils. I may give you a tripod or 2 horses, complete with the chariot, or else a woman to join you in bed. And then the archer's response to Agamemnon is, "Why do you urge me? I am keen already."
Yeah. Like,
as long as I have strength, I never stop.
Yeah.
And so he said, that mad dog Hector is the only one I cannot hit.
Yeah.
So this guy is like, doesn't actually need any encouragement.
Yeah.
Agamemnon is like, Agamemnon always thinks that people want what he wants.
Yeah.
Which is spoils. But it turns out that some people are just self-motivated.
Yeah.
And they just want to be good at being an archer.
Yeah.
And they really want to take down Hector.
Yeah.
You know? So I find that interesting.
Yeah. And so the last kind of the mortal speeches that I want to talk about returns to Hector, because the tides again shift. The Trojans get again the upper hand. And basically again in the plot, darkness comes on again. And the Trojans are basically kind of like at the gates, and they're like, we don't want to retreat all the way back to the city and let them regain this territory, so we're going to camp out here for the night, out on the fields. We'll bring a bunch of food and stuff. And so that kind of final speech that Hector gives, saying like, you know, we're going to be here and like tomorrow's our day, is another, I think, great speech. You didn't like it as much. Do you want to talk about why you...
Well, read some of your... I just didn't feel like it hit as hard as it seems to have hit you. How about you read like your favorite part and then tell me why you like it so much?
Yeah. So there's a couple. It's a long speech. It's like more than a full page long.
Yeah.
So I'll pick some sections. Then let our heralds through the town their offices employ to warn the youth yet short of war and time white fathers past, that in our God-built towers they see strong courts of guard be placed about the walls, and let our dames, yet flourishing in years, that having beauties to keep pure, are most inclined to fears, since darkness in distressful times more dreadful is than light, make lofty fires in every house, and thus the dangerous night held with strong watch, if the enemy have ambuscades laid, near to our walls, and therefore seen in flight the more dismayed, intending a surprise while we are all without the town, that every way shall be impugned to every man's renown. And so you've talked about how darkness, right? Darkness is what ended the duel between Hector and Ajax, and now darkness brings this on. And Hector kind of realizes darkness could be bad, right? Like if we're out here on the fields, we could expose our town. So we need to go back. We need to tell all of the sort of like the kids and the old men and our wives who are there to like keep watch, because the Greeks might be planning something, recognizing that like, hey, skeezy stuff can happen in the darkness. And I like the way Chapman does, since darkness in distressful times more dreadful is than light, like recognizing that we're close, but we're in a dangerous place right now. Like we're exposed, and so we need to be extra vigilant. But then it transitions a little bit where he's still confident, and he ends the speech, the last, again, this might be just Chapman being extra embellished, but the last 4 lines of the speech. Oh, that I were sure to live immortal, and sustain no frailties with increasing years, but evermore remain, adored like Pallas or the sun, as all doubts die in me, that heaven's next light shall be the last the Greeks shall ever see. So he's saying, right, like, and I think actually, yeah, like in my limerick, that's why I made that the last line emphasize that like the Trojans hope that the next day like will be the day they win, because this idea of like darkness has come on, but the next light that the Greeks see will be the last light they ever see. And so there's fear that comes with the darkness, but the light, tomorrow morning's light, will bring us hope because we will like defeat them once and for all. And so I think the way it's both just a good encouragement, like we're going to sleep now, but tomorrow's the day, like, you know, one day more kind of Les Mis style, but also again playing with this light and dark imagery in order to emphasize like the watchfulness of the night and then the hope of the day.
Yeah.
And then there's
Which
all the Lord of the Rings, like, you know, look to on the third day it's dawn and all that. Like, I feel like in many, many sort of stories, like looking to the light, the sunrise, bringing the next great hope of the battle.
Which I guess makes the image that comes after his speech, it makes it make more sense because it's a sea of darkness and their fires are like stars.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great simile at the end of all of the campfires being
So
like
it's
stars.
like a sea of little hopes
Right.
in the darkness.
Right. Yeah, and he's again told we're not going to be the only ones lighting a fire. Tell everybody back in Troy to also light fires because something might be up. And I also think, again, this is spoilers a little bit. We know something will be up. We, as readers who are familiar with this, he's kind of right. The bad stuff does happen at night, and the Greeks are going to try some tricks. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that kind of like dramatic irony of like, you've got all these watchfires, but they're not going to be effective.
Yeah, I still don't know if I'm sold by Hector's speech seems a little bit too much business, if that makes sense. Like,
Where he's just like, go get the oxen, like giving instructions.
Yeah, it starts off being quite utilitarian, and then it only until the end transitions to being a hopeful message. And I guess that again it speaks to his leadership is very straightforward
And pragmatic, yeah.
Yeah, and so when he starts to give his speech, he's very like, okay, here's the to-do list, guys. And then later versus like Agamemnon would never give a speech like this.
Yeah.
It just like wouldn't. This is not how he talks at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going forth throughout this book as we get into the middle of this book and then obviously the end because we're in the thick of it now.
Yeah.
I want to encourage us to keep thinking about this idea of the proper order of things. And also, and to pay attention to when the order of things shifts. And also, I want to put forth a theory that because this is war, the only way to win war is not to put things into proper order. In order to win a war, one side needs to become disproportionately warlike, right? So either the Greeks or the Trojans. And I think we know which character in specific is going to be the most warlike, you know, Achilles, just to be clear for the audience. But when Achilles comes and he disproportionately brings war to the table.
Yeah.
And that is what ends the war. Like, war ends war, right? Not peace. In the Iliad. I don't mean like that's not my philosophy on life. In the Iliad, only more war will beat war.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the goal of conquest is to subsume the order of the other, right? Like we want to destroy the Trojan hierarchy. Priam and all of his sons they have their order, we have our order. We're in conflict, and one of us is going to subsume the other and like bring their order into ours or under ours and subjugate them.
Yeah, and it's only when it's completely disordered, absolute chaos, when the system breaks, that then you can usher in an ordered or time of peace almost. Because we do after Achilles just breaks the war. He like kind of, he breaks the game.
Yeah.
Right? Then, only then do we see, whoa, we need to take a step back. And only then will things maybe settle.
Yeah.
So I want to
can also see how this is going to tie into your thoughts on the Odyssey, because the same thing happens when Odysseus returns home and like everything breaks, and then there's this like attempt at reordering things.
Yeah, it's a similar ending where you think the end of the Odyssey is going to be he's home, yay, he's home, but that's actually only 2/3 through.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with the Iliad, where you think. What?
Keep going. I got a good thought.
Oh, you have a good thought.
Or do you want me to share?
I just want to say that same thing in the Iliad, where you think the end, the war doesn't even end in the entirety of the Iliad. The war continues after the end of this, but we get to a point where things just blow up, and then we have to watch as the pieces settle.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
Because it's the same thing that also happens in The Return of the King, the book, not the movie. This is one of the biggest omissions from the movie, is the scouring of the Shire, where after the war ends, there's this like, things are good, but then the hobbits go back, and it's like, oh wait, no, we still have to put our home in order as well. Like, things have gone bad there. And this sense of like, too much disorder has happened, even though we've technically won, things are too broken. And so now there has to be this like resettling and reordering of things back in the Shire as well.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why I think people really don't like that part of Lord of the Rings. I don't think people enjoy it, but I do think it is probably necessary to the type of story that's trying to be told. Yeah. So yeah, let's keep these thoughts in mind as we read.
Yeah, because like I've said a couple times, like books 7 and 8 are kind of transition books, and they're not boring by any means, but books 9 and 10, like I remember both of these very well, and books 9 and 10 are both very exciting, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So stay tuned. If you want to prepare, again, I'm recording an audiobook of Samuel Butler's translation of the Iliad, so I'll have book 9 ready right now for you to go listen to, and we'll be back next week with our episode on book 9.
Yes, happy reading.
Happy reading.